Welcome back, everybody. I don't know why I'm saying it like I'm in a normal YouTube video, but this is May 4th. May the 4th be with you. 2025, another diary entry. And I had a couple valuable lessons this week. I guess like on a lighter note, I had a really nice day trip with my girlfriend to Breda, which is a city in the southern part of the Netherlands, which yeah, I don't know. It's just we something we did a lot last year was during the nice parts of the year was to take like a day trip to somewhere we'd never been before, just like a small, hour and a half train ride, and having that little sense of adventure is really nice. Um, and it just kind of forgot because we hadn't done that in a while, so I forgot how nice that was. But in regards to lessons, um, so I did a podcast episode for the Deadlock and Load podcast on Wednesday, and we had Deathy as our podcast guest. He's a content creator for Deadlock who, prior to that, was a consultant. So had like a very normal, steady job, and like willingly chose to give that up for pursuing content creation. And there were several lessons I took away from that. First off, he was an awesome guy to listen to. I just really liked hearing his reasoning. He seems like somebody who thinks very philosophically and deeply about all of his decision making, which I really appreciate. And, he gives like a very well all encompassing picture of why he does what he does. And, it's very obvious why or that he was a consultant, that he's very good at, explaining his thought process, and something I resonate with, something I don't see very often. And so I very much appreciated hearing him talk. And my main takeaway from that, above all else, was him talking about how grateful he was to the community of Deadlock, his community within his viewership, and just for his ability to be able to do this job. He talked about, the hardships and the positives and all that, but the biggest thing was how often he expressed gratitude. And it just that's been a theme of mine in the last like 6 months, as I've thought a lot about gratitude. But it really hit me that I hadn't told myself that I was grateful for being able to be in video games doing what I do for a living. And I think when you're really stressed out, when you're burnt out, when you're getting in your own head, when you don't really know what you want to do, these are all kind of feelings I've been having over the last year at various moments, not usually all at once. I think it's just really hard to remind yourself of the good things that led to you having these problems, and like being grateful, basically, not taking for granted the things that went right, that are responsible, partially all of them, for why you're here today. And yeah, it was just so clear to me that your perspective on a situation can so drastically change when you just ask yourself and be honest and say, am I grateful for this? And the fact is, I am. And it's like, I guess I had thought to myself I should be more grateful in general, but I guess hearing him be so authentic and genuine about it, it was just so clear to me how easy it is, no matter who it is. It was just very humanizing to me, where there's sometimes where you'll see somebody, maybe you guys even thought this about me, I don't know, where you'll see somebody that seems really ungrateful for their situation. Like they have a lot of things good going for them, or there's something about their situation, life, that you would like to be able to have and you don't. So there's like a combination of ego, envy, all that stuff. And then just remembering that the brain really adapts to things quite quickly. Um, and it's very easy to lose touch with exactly how good or bad things are. And I think that's also what sometimes prevents us from doing something about our problems, because our problems are so normalized in our head that we just live our life that way. So it goes like positively and negatively, Not checking in kind of leads to not
asking yourself, are there problems I'm going through that are worth fixing? And you just get used to them. And then not really having gratitude or continuously reminding yourself in some way. I guess another way of checking in for gratitude, I think, prevents us from seeing the positives, especially when we're stressed out and things are rough. And maybe the things outside of our control in life recently haven't gone our way. And just hearing him, I was like, I almost had this like instant shift in, wow, I am grateful for my job. Wow. And then like the last few days, I've just felt, yeah, I've just felt so incredibly grateful for everything I have in comparison to before that. It's not that I was ungrateful. I just felt way more amount of a much greater magnitude of gratification or gratefulness. And it's just yet another reminder in life that it's all perspective. Everything is just all perspective. So I had that, and that was really nice to hear from him. And just, shout out to Deathy. Check him out. He's on YouTube as well as Twitch. Great Deadlock content creator, and maybe check out the episode if you want to hear him talk about this stuff, because I think it's honestly one of our best episodes yet, because he's just such a good guest. So, and I had one more lesson for this week. I'm trying to remember what it was. It'll hit me in a second here. I guarantee it'll hit me in a second here. Really love if we could edit this, but I'm not having anybody help me with these videos, so I had one more clear cut thing that I learned this week. Oh, I watched Dr. K have his like 3-hour long conversation with Pirate Software. If you guys aren't fully aware of that drama, he's like a big Twitch streamer who did some hardcore WoW raids, and to some degree he like messed up and got people killed. And then there's been like a huge uproar and crazy fan backlash, or also hater backlash, because people feel like he never owned up to what he did. And I encourage you to watch it. It's on Healthy Gamer GG. It's their, as of now, latest video. Man, was that an enlightening conversation. I loved listening to that. I think Dr. K is a freaking mastermind of how to handle difficult conversations and try to give somebody feedback in a manner that has that attempts to help them come to their own conclusions, rather than just saying you're this is your problem. I think Dr. K is just so good at that. And I think the most powerful lessons we learn in life is when somebody illuminates something for us that we then see it ourselves and admit it out loud to ourselves without them explicitly stating it. I think that's when the most powerful lessons happen. And to be honest, I'm not really sure how much Thor is his name learned from it all. I'm not really sure. Because from my humble opinion, he wasn't the most receptive to... It didn't seem like he was the most open-minded about taking a different approach to what he's been doing. But what was so interesting about this, and it applies to my current self, is I do feel like what people hate him for, which is this like lack of accountability, but then hearing him talk about the fact that he feels like he's accountable and that he owns up to his mistakes, I feel like that degree of separation between what he thinks he's saying or portraying and what people see is something that I really felt the majority of my life, and it got worse during my first like 5 to 6 years of streaming. If anybody recalls, maybe you're in that group, there were a lot of people back then that really thought I was like had the face they wanted to punch. They really didn't like me very much.
And then there were a lot of people in the Dota scene that kind of gave me the benefit of the doubt and says he does own up to his stuff, and I do believe in him and all that kind of stuff. It was very polarized how the Dota community felt about me. And that was exactly what was happening with Thor. That was like exactly what's happening, just at like a much bigger scale because he's like a huge streamer. And I could really relate to what he was describing, and the way he was handling it did have underlying tones, in my opinion, of like narcissistic tendencies. I think people use the word narcissist way too liberally, and if somebody has a single narcissistic trait, which we all have, by the way, at least one, that they're then labeled as a narcissist. And so, just to be clear, I'm not saying I think he's a narcissist. I think that the way he's handling this situation makes him look like one. And people did kind of say the same things about me 5 years ago plus. And I felt so misunderstood, and I felt like I didn't know what I was missing. And one thing that I expressed back then, or maybe I never said it explicitly on stream, maybe probably never said it in a video, was, so Dr. K talked about the fact that when you get attacked, it's really difficult to, like, when you get personally attacked, somebody puts attack on your character, that it's really difficult to be able to look at yourself objectively because, you know, you're being bombarded with so much negative stimuli, and especially as like a streamer in the public eye, the amount of negativity you're being exposed to is like way more than anyone in history, right? Like that just wasn't possible before the internet. So he said that for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and the first instinct of every human being is to defend themselves, right? And so then if you take that at like a scale of thousands of people, then suddenly you become so defensive almost naturally that what happens, and I can highly relate to this is kind of what Thor said, or at least maybe what Dr. K said Thor might be saying, one of the two, is that it becomes impossible, near impossible, to say anything mean to yourself or to admit anything bad about yourself, because so many people so often tell you what's wrong with you. And if you don't have like the proper support system or the proper, honestly, like emotional management, which I think is, you know, I've been working on it for like 5 years and it's still a work in progress, then you're just operating at a deficit, because over time you're just getting more and more in your own head, more and more ego shielding, deflecting, dismissiveness, because you don't want to talk about it anymore because you're just so tired of being bombarded. And so I heard that in the way that he was talking, Thor. But what I also heard was a complete lack of accountability with someone who was trying to be accountable, which I thought was so interesting, that he truly believed he was being accountable. And yet hearing it now, I'm like, no, he's not. And I have to imagine that that's exactly what people have thought of me historically, that that's exactly the gap that happened and may still be happening. Just, you know, maybe not as, definitely not as much to the same degree, but it may still be happening. And man, it was illuminating. It was just eye-opening to hear all that. It really humanized somebody that I thought was just insufferable to listen to. I'll be honest, like listening to him was insufferable. But like I did, and Dr. K was so good at humanizing the situation, and it felt like he wasn't there to diagnose this guy. He wasn't there to choose a side. He wasn't there to do anything other than illuminate what's happening here between the community being so outraged and Thor being so affected by this. And man, oh man, it was just so good. And for me, what I realized recently in my games is that there's a lot of times, it's actually like it's like an instant application for me, is that like I had a game last week of Dota where I
picked offlane Slark and Jakiro thinking I have a Dispel against all of Jakiro's dots. This might be a decent matchup. I also like won the matchup maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago. What I learned later is 3 or 4 weeks ago, people weren't taking the facet that gives Jakiro more attack damage. And with that facet, the matchup's fine. But with the attack damage facet, Jakiro just right-clicks me and I just die. So I had a horrible game. I made the game really bad. I was trying my best, and 20 minutes plus, just my entire team spent the entire game bitching at me. And the thing about it was, at the time, I was like, I understand, like, I'm saying this to my chat, I understand I picked Slark, and it kind of ruined the lanes. But, like, now, like, I can't change anything about what they're bitching about. I can't change anything about it. Like, can we just play, you know? And what happened with Thor was that he made a lot of mistakes, or a few, early on in this whole process, because the process he's been going through has been going on for like 3 months. He made a few mistakes, and then a bunch of bad shits happened. So when he's describing what happened, which is kind of similar to me picking a bad hero at the beginning of the game and then having a bunch of things go wrong in the first 20 minutes. Like, that's how I view it, right? It's a one-thing decision, a mistake in hindsight, that then 20 minutes worth of things have happened, and that mistake was like a 5-second mistake, right? So it's the equivalent of him making a mistake over the course of a day or two, and then 100 days later having that. And what he would say is, this is what happened, this is what happened. I was smug about my response, and I was a smartass, and then proceed to talk for 2 minutes about the last 100 days. And so if somebody says, I did this, I did that, but then proceeds to give 2 minutes of everything else everyone else did to them, what you're going to hear is, well, he doesn't have any accountability. He's just lashing out, right? You don't hear it. You don't hear any accountability in that. Even if he did acknowledge what he did, because it's so dismissive of what he did. It's like 2 seconds of mentioning what he did and 2 minutes of what everyone else did. And by not ever acknowledging the fact that I picked Slark to my team and that was a mistake, and I'm sorry about that, in hindsight, like, I'm not sorry I tried it, but I'm sorry about putting them in this position, then they're effectively thinking this entire 20 minutes that this guy just ruined my game and he never said anything. And by not saying anything, I'm effectively dismissing in their heads my own mistake. I'm not dismissing it in my head. I know it's a mistake. But from their perspective, what I've learned when somebody makes a mistake, whether or not, like, the intention doesn't matter in this case, right? Like, the intention of I was trying something new, it doesn't matter. What matters is I did make their game harder by picking this hero. I did make their game harder by having a bad laning stage. And what this so clearly said to me, because in the past I was like, I don't need to coddle these people. Like, these people are giving me no respect. They're just shitting on me for something I did 20 minutes ago. And what was so clear to me, because I was like, that's not something that's worth doing to me. Like, fuck that. Like, I deserve better than that. Which, to some extent, what they're doing isn't fair either. You know, it's not fair to shit talk me and dwell on a mistake that I made so long ago. But what I realized from this episode, or from this interview that Dr. K had, was how powerful it would be if Thor gave an acknowledgement of what he did wrong with saying nothing else about anything. And having the entire subject of that conversation just be, I understand that I messed up, and I'm not proud of how I handled that situation. And in the future, I'll like to do better, and this is how I plan to do it. You know, that would be amazingly powerful. And during that interview, Thor, that kind of approach came up, and Thor said, I hate that hand gesturing bullshit, that virtue signaling bullshit. And it was so funny to me that he was so averse and so triggered by the idea of simply acknowledging his own fault without talking about all the things other people did, because other people always do things too. Like, but just being able to talk about that without talking about the whole picture and just making it clear to everyone involved that he's aware he messed up. Because if you say I messed up and then 2 minutes of all the other things people did wrong, there's really no demonstration that you are truly aware of what you did wrong. it's so dismissive of what you did wrong. There's no proof that you are aware of it. Even if you said it, there's no proof that you understand what you've done to the people around you, how you've affected them. There's no proof. So what happens is, if people don't feel like you're aware of what you did, there's like this intrinsic fear that you'll do it again. And then they are uncomfortable around you. And then they don't like you. And, oh man, it's so obvious what makes somebody just have such a punchable face. What makes them so unlikable, insufferable. And it's because you're just like, he'll do it again. This guy's going to go into his next Dota game and ruin it off lane with Slark or some shit. That's what I'm going to do. Like, that's the perspective I'm seeing from what my teammates were thinking during that game. And man, holy man, that was just like such a powerful realization. So my takeaway from it in regards to applicable instant hope, not instant fix, but I think it will create instant results in terms of things will simply be better than they were before, is that if I mess up a laning phase, if I pick a bad hero experimentally that doesn't work, just hey guys, I'm sorry that I picked a bad hero that ended up not working this game. I know I've put us in this tough spot, but I'm going to try my best to win, and I hope we can too. You know, I hope the rest of you can too. Give me a shot to try to win this game. Like some 5-second, 10-second acknowledgement, and kind of, it can be formulaic. Like, I think it can just kind of be habitual, where it's like, hey guys, I did this. I know I'm significantly responsible for what's happening to all of us right now. I would still like to overcome this and win this game, and just have that be it. And the thing is, I think that gives people a chance to not be pieces of shit. I think that gives people a chance to respond to me in a reasonable way, right? But the point is, I've learned that I feel way better about everything if I gave other people a chance, and I'm confident that I gave them a chance. And if they take it, fantastic, we can win the game. If they proceed to say, well, you're a fucking idiot for picking it, you piece of shit, then it's obvious there's no reasoning with this person. It's obvious there's nothing I can do here. But the goal at all times, no matter how unreasonable people are around you, is to not lose faith, to not become detached from your own role in this equation. And understanding that just because I made a mistake and I can't fix it doesn't mean, and I'm aware of this, does not mean that the people around me are aware that I'm aware of this. And if they are fearful that I will just do it again, or that I'm just like everybody else who ruins their games, if they think that, which people assume the worst, that's just how the mind works, then they're going to be bitter towards me, period. They're going to be bitter towards me. And I've always thought this, like, emotional coddling is how I called it. Pandering to these fucking annoying people, these whiners, was like a waste of time. I really did. I was just like, I can't do that all the time. But then I just see this so clearly as like, oh, I could do that one little thing. That's clearly like a very powerful acknowledgement and, you know, giving people a chance to move forward. So that's my goal, actually, in the near future playing Dota. People often ask me what my goal is when I'm playing Dota. And my goal right now is when I make the game really hard knowingly. You know, I picked a bad hero, I played really bad in lane, whatever, that I am going to give like a 5-10 second acknowledgement displaying my awareness that I fucked up and that it's affecting the people around me, and then move on and play as normal. And that will then give me the chance that if somebody responds to me in a very rude, dehumanizing way, to then mute them. And for me, whatever, like, learning to overcome my anxiety and learning to overcome these type of tough situations that like mentally plague me on like a regular basis, whether it's within Dota or outside of it, so much of it is, do I feel like I'll be able to handle that next time in some formulaic way that gets me out of it, or at least like helps me and the people around me move past it? And it's the same thing I've done in my relationship. And what's so powerful and what's amazing about my current relationship with me and Kasha is I feel like that each one of us
is able to talk about how we would like to better handle this next time. And when we find ourselves in this spot again, what's like the general step-by-step formula we would like to take to fix this or to work through it. And then the next time something similar happens, we just kind of follow the steps and it's quickly solved. And it's not nearly as much of an emotional or, effort headache as it was before.
And this was just such a powerful lesson. I can't believe I had to think about it for another 30 seconds to a minute of what it was. But I hope you guys learned something from this. Maybe it resonates with you. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think like, wow, BSJ, you're a fucking pussy. What a waste of your time. But man, it's an epiphany for sure. So glad I love these videos because I get to use them as a way to articulate myself, express my own thoughts to myself, to you guys, and solidify them, because I'm talking about them out loud. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Concludes May the 4th be with you. And I will see you guys next week for another check-in. Bye-bye.